Tom Hart, Andy Kennedy will be on the call. Tom Hart's good enough to join us for a couple of minutes now. How are you, man?
What's up, brother? I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Always our pleasure. We were talking about this in the last segment before you came on. Is the LSU Mississippi State SEC tournament game from last year the crowning achievement of your professional broadcast career?
There's no doubt about it. I realized at that morning, I think it was about 3:15 when I put the headset down, that my career was going down the tubes after that. That was at least until Andy Kennedy referenced Ron Jeremy on the air last week instead of Ron Burgundy. So I was wrong about that one, too.
Oh, how did I miss that? That's the type of thing that's right in my wheelhouse, Tom. Like, I'm a hawk for things like that, and I missed it.
I usually don't recommend people to Google Ron Jeremy, but if you Google Ron Jeremy and Andy Kennedy, you will find a lot of fun from a week ago tonight.
How did I miss it? So what you're saying is don't Google that, however, from my work computer. Wait till I get home.
Right.
God. Hey, HR on line 2. Hey, we're also talking before you came on. I had a listener ask if I thought Skyler Mays had a chance to win SEC Player of the Year. And I know Kwanzo talked about that yesterday. You get to see everybody in the league. What do you think? Where does Skyler stack up in that conversation right now?
Yeah, I was actually asked about that by another media member last week, and when I put together my candidates for Player of the Year, I use a pretty wide berth here, right? I mean, I don't just limit it to guys who are only on great teams. So, I think he's in the discussion. I certainly think Nick Richards is in the discussion, especially the way he's turned his career around, really, with this one season. Who am I missing? I'm missing the Georgia kid. I have him on there because I think he's the best pro prospect in the league. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. Yes, Anthony Edwards. He's awesome, and when he plays with a motor, nobody can stop him because he can score anywhere on the floor. He reminds me, from a scoring perspective, of when I covered Derrick Rose at Memphis when he was playing for John Calipari. He can be a different type player, but in terms of having his way when it comes to scoring, and he can be an elite defender. And so let's see, that's 3 guys. And Mason Jones last week was coming off of 3 straight 30-point games. So I think guys like Edwards and Jones, even though they're not on teams that are going to compete for a championship, I think they deserve consideration, because if you were playing pickup ball and you had a chance to make some picks, those 4 guys are the ones you would start your picks with. You know, you'd say, I've got to have Mason Jones or an Anthony Edwards and the others because they're that good. Then the question is, what would the team be without him, and would this team be in first place in the SEC without him? And there's no chance they would be. He is the rock of this team.
Tom Hart's our guest on Twitter at Tom_Hart. He'll be on the call tonight with Andy Kennedy for LSU and Mizzou. Usually you get to see shoot around, practice when you're in town. I'm curious, we've talked a lot about this, Tom, how Will Wade has managed this team's psychology through the ups and downs of this season. Just from a bird's eye view watching this team, what do you see when you watch Will Wade this year and how he handles this team?
I don't think he's any different than he's been in years past. I mean, he is a very intense coach. He is a very demanding coach. If you're not playing defense, he's going to let you know about it. Just using that as an example, because I know that's been a topic of conversation over the last 2 games. And he expects to be listened to. So I don't know if that explains enough, if that's a good enough answer for you, but I see him the same no matter what. And Will always has an edge to him. And I think good coaches do. Great coaches are never complacent. They're never happy. There's always an edge. There's always something else that can be refined. There's something that can be sanded down. And Will's always that way. Even when his team's great and things are rolling, there might be more of a smile, but there's also just as much of, yes, we're good, but this. As a matter of fact, share the story. I don't think he'd mind me sharing it, but early in the season, he was really unhappy with where they were, and he just saw a lot of warts on his team. And I said, man, look at where you guys are. You're playing good basketball. You're actually in pretty good shape. He said, yeah. He goes, I was really worried about our team, and I was really upset with where we were. And then I started watching some of the other teams, and I thought, you know what, we're not that bad. But sometimes they have to take that 30,000-foot view and say, wait a second, let's put this in perspective. I know life isn't perfect, but comparison can be the thief of joy to regular people. Comparison can also be a great security blanket to coaches who think, you know what, the sky's not falling. You guys are okay, especially relative to the people you're competing for a conference championship with.
And the Tigers are right now tied for first place. To maintain that, they'll have to win tonight against Missouri. They're a big favorite. I know you get to look at both sides of this matchup. No Jeremiah Tillman tonight from Missouri. Mark Smith questionable. Do you have any update there? 3 hours, a little less than 3 hours from tip?
No update except that Tillman didn't even make the trip. At least I didn't see him at practice today. I don't know, honestly, if Missouri isn't a better team without Jeremiah Tillman. It sounds odd to say because he should be an NBA prospect, but, sometimes guys who have a hard time playing injured or have a hard time playing for the team or being motivated, sometimes they can be vampire suckers and just suck the energy out of the team. They might be better without him. Missouri's going to have a really hard time keeping LSU off the glass tonight, and so that's why I hedged that bet, saying they're better without him. They don't have a whole lot of size. The size they do have, they don't have a ton of athleticism, and they can get out jumped and beaten to the glass. And I think that's going to be the key of this game. And it wasn't at the Arkansas game. LSU had 53 rebounds. I don't think they're going to have 53 boards tonight, but I do expect them to have a comfortable advantage on the glass.
Mizzou had 52 against Arkansas this past weekend in their game. I mean, both teams dominated Arkansas on the glass. Yeah, it was 52-35. Missouri out-rebounded Arkansas this weekend without Tillman.
And Arkansas is a weird team.
Yeah.
They're inverted with their personnel, and they got a 6'3" guy playing in the middle and a 6'5" point forward, kind of running the offense. So that's going to happen to them sometimes.
Tom Hart's with us. Before I let you run, if Missouri does have success, what does the game flow look like for Missouri tonight if it's going their way?
It would look very similar to what the Vanderbilt game looked like for LSU last week. This is a Missouri team that has shown spurts. They scored 91 points at home against Florida really early in the season. I think it was the first week of conference play. And they've had a hard time replicating that just because they're not a great jump shooting team. They don't make a whole lot of shots. They're like 32% on jump shots alone. They're not a great three-point shooting team. Obviously, that goes hand in hand. So for Missouri to find offense, it's usually predicated, and they're a great defensive team, don't get me wrong, but it's got to be predicated on them getting stops and turnovers on the defensive end. And they're much more of a kind of a throwback Big Ten, Purdue, Konzo Martin type of defensive team where I'm not saying that they don't try to play the passing lanes and they're not aggressive on the ball, but they seem to be at their best when they're just staying in front of the ball and staying in front of the guy they're guarding. So they don't turn people over a lot, but if they can do that, then that can lead to offense. They do have some guys that can get hot. They just haven't done it very often this year.
He's Tom Hart. He'll be on the call tonight for LSU, Mizzou out at the Maravich Center. Any idea when you'll be at the box for the first time this year?
Not yet. I'm also in the midst of my XFL season. We just started, so I'm doing those games on Sundays, and that's going to get in the way of a little bit of my college baseball. But I will still definitely be involved, and we're still putting together the schedule to see where I can squeeze those in because it's a passion of mine, as you know.
Sounds good, man. And I'm going to bother you to talk some XFL here in the coming weeks as well, if that's cool.
Yeah, if you can't get a hold of me, I still have the number for He Hate Me, so we can hook you up.
I do want to go dig that guy up. He's got to be that's got to be an awesome conversation, right? I mean, 100 people have had it, but if you never read it or heard it, it's got to be good.
I mean, if that were me, I would pull a McLovin, and that would be on my driver's license. But
Right.
I'm weird. That's me.
No, but like 20 years later, people still remember that. In this business, like how hard is it to create something that sticks for 20 years?
That's a great point. In fact, I just left Harper's Haberdashery. I'm going to turn around and see if they can put He Hate Me on the back of my sport coat for tonight.
If you do that, tons of bonus points. I'll retweet you. Not that would do any good for you anyway. Thanks, Tom. We appreciate you, man. Have a great call.
All right, Google Ron Jeremy, but make sure you add Andy Kennedy or it'll get really ugly.
I will do neither right now until I get home. All right. Thanks, man. I'll see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right.